Hey everybody, welcome to Surface Level, creating a community where Black and queer folk are fearless in thought and curious at heart. I'm one of your hosts, Damon, and today, Tony, Jordan, and I are discussing Black and queer literature. What stories have we read that have affected our views on the Black and queer experience? If you could write any story, what would it be? This is Reading Rainbow. All right.
Okay. All right. Read that rainbow, girl. Read that rainbow.
So, like every episode, we're going to start with a little game.
Yeah.
And it's themed from some topics from some Black queer writers.
Okay. Well, English was my favorite subject.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just so you know.
love to read.
I mean, my dedegree is in journalism.
She's the storyteller of the group.
I am the storyteller.
We don't have all night.
I carry the bones.
Keep it. All right. So, George M. Johnson's All Boys Aren't Blue highlights his struggles identifying with traditional male expectations. So what pink activities would you prefer to do growing up? Cheerleading or ballet?
Ooh.
Jordan?
Definitely cheerleading. The cheerleaders at my middle school, they were so sassy. I don't even think they was cheerleading. I think they were just like a drill team.
Black cheerleaders are very different.
It was just like a drill team.
Very competitive.
They did like a remix to Uchi Wally by Nas.
Yeah,
it was really good. And I was in the bleachers like
Getting your entire
like,
life.
I hate this game, but I love this show.
not in the bleachers.
Tony?
So I think for me it would be ballet because I have dancer's feet.
You do have a pointed toe.
The girls want to cut me off at the ankle and steal my feet. The dancer girls, because I just have the feet for it. And I did do a little bit of ballet when I was in elementary school, and
I'm sick of
and
you
I
already.
think I missed like one of my callings in
callings,
life
yeah.
because I should be an A-League dancer. You know,
You should be on the
principal
in the subway,
dancer.
flying through the air in the ads.
I absolutely should be. And you know, it's well, I was gonna say it's never too late, but you know, dancers, you got to be
It's too
like
late.
14.
It's
Well,
too late,
actually, you
baby.
start at like 5.
Right.
And
Shut
you
up.
ain't nowhere near that no
I
more.
think we passed the threshold.
Past the threshold. Okay,
I think ballet too.
I'll hang it up. Hang up my shoes. But I still got the feet.
Okay. If anybody was curious.
Tony's OnlyFans feed story.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. So in Langston Hughes' poem, Mother to Son, there's a very famous line that says, "Life ain't been no crystal stair." So if you could choose a life with extreme peaks and valleys, or that's consistently mundane, which lesser of those two evils, Tony?
I like the highs and the lows of life. I like the good, the bad, the ugly. I think you learn from the peaks and the valleys, and so I want those valuable lessons. I don't want, you know, a mundane atrocity of a life. So I'm gonna go with peaks and valleys.
I mean, I have to agree with Tony. Like, no one in their right mind is like relocating to New York City if they're not somewhat comfortable with having peaks and valleys.
New York City is the valley most of the time.
I'm in the valley right now. I'm perpetually in a valley.
Okay.
Yeah, give me peaks, valleys, fire, desire, all the things. So next, our friend Riley Wilson wrote a book called My ID and explores a person growing up with an obsession with flying.
Yes.
If you had a superpower, would you rather fly or be invisible? Jordan.
Ooh.
You know, she a little.
Invisible.
I knew that's
Because she a scammer. I knew.
Definitely Joanne the scammer.
Invisible. I will be everywhere and nowhere.
I would be everywhere and nowhere.
Okay.
You know what? There's a book called Invisible Life, and I would like that life.
Ooh.
Not in the means of what the book was giving,
I was like, you want
did
that
you
one?
read
but in the means of this game, I did read the book. In the means of this game, I would like that invisible life because I want to be able to. It's kind of like having that anonymity, but at the ultimate anonymity of being able to just be everywhere and nowhere.
I'm going to fly. I ain't trying to hide from
baby.
these girls.
Fly.
Sorry.
What? Did you have?
I was going to start singing a song, but we can't sing that song on.
Oh no! Yeah.
don't say that.
I know
forgot.
what you're talking
I
about.
forgot.
Moving on.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
All right.
sorry.
So the
I'm sorry.
classic TV show Soul features a conversation between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin. in which James says, if you love me, you can't lie to me. And Nikki Giovanni replies, if you love me, of course you lie to me. Because I get the least of you. You smile at work and act all happy and do all these things in the world, and then you get home and want to give me this sadness. So would you prefer friendships or relationships that had absolute truth all the time, or a little bit of lying to soften things for you? Jordan, you
lie. Don't nobody want to sit here and have to deal with everybody's damn luggage all damn day. My day was long too. Shit. Like I don't. Put on the. Be a good sport. I mean, obviously we can have time to like check in with everybody, but if it's giving dirge every damn day, it's like you have to find someone else.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I prefer, give me the truth, and because we're gonna have honest conversation, we're gonna have real conversation, and when it's time for you to shut the fuck up, I'm gonna be able to say.
Why would you say it like that? I was really following you. I was like, so deep.
I would be able to be like, girl, less.
Give me 95% truth, but 5% of the time, just show up.
Zhuzh it up.
Yeah, just every now and then.
Every now and then.
And as a nod to today's guest, would you rather date Jesus and live a life without a partner, or die poor and never quite become financially successful? Tony.
Oh my God.
Date Jesus. Because the other option, I'm not trying to be poor. Wait, read those again.
So
date Jesus and live a life without a partner, or die poor.
Yes.
And
die poor.
Never be financial. Yeah, I'm not. No. I'd rather date Jesus and live a life without a partner.
Same.
Because I got y'all. Y'all my partners.
Right. And it's not to say you can't have fun.
Oh, I'm going to have a lot of fun.
Always.
I intend to do some flying.
I was gonna say die poor. Just because I don't want the same type of relationship my parents had, but I look at what the relationship my parents had, and I don't think they would change any level of that partnership for money. And I think there's value in living a life with a person and connection more than money. And I'm not saying extreme poverty, child, but
not extreme. Now you get to choose which poverty
I said poor, not extreme poverty. That's different. Those are different. I just want to be clear.
Because you're right, because I'm poor right now.
I am poor right now.
I'm poor.
We can't say that.
I am.
Who's not poor?
I'm technically
I'm poor.
Okay.
All right. So, starting our conversation, we want to talk about some things we've read, highlight some queer authors, writers, poets, maybe. I don't know what you all picked. But what's something that you've recently read, or just read generally, that's impacted your Black and queer experience? Jordan, you look very doughy-eyed or something right now. Why are you looking at me like that?
How am I looking?
Don't make that face.
What's the face? I can't help it. I can't change my face.
That face.
So I read like a couple of like stories that the protagonist was a queer person, a queer Black person. And in this moment, it's hard for me to kind of decide. But I'm just going to go with which book I felt like was the most interesting to me, which was this book called oh my God, what was it called?
Child.
The book that you read?
The Confessions of Franny Langton by Sarah Collins.
Oh my God, I see why you forgot it.
It was a lot.
The who of what? About who? I'm ready to do what I do.
The Confessions of Franny Langton by Sarah Collins.
Got it.
And the reason why I really like that book is because it's about a woman, Franny Langton, who grew up in Jamaica, and it was sort of like towards the tail end of slavery, but still working the grounds for a white family. The white family had went bankrupt, and then they sold Franny to a wealthy family in London. Yeah. And London at the time was a bit more progressive in human rights for Black people at the time than Jamaica. So she had a little bit more liberty. And she was also smart. She was educated. That was a rarity at that time. And the madam of the house, she actually engaged into a relationship with the woman in the house, and it was a lesbian. love affair, which I was just like,
That's
oh my
fun.
God, it was a lot. It was like, and the thing is, there was this big, it was during a time
It
where
sound like rape.
it wasn't. I'm not going to say it wasn't. I'm not going to say she wasn't groomed. I don't know. What I will say is that I thought that it was interesting because during that time, Franny was working the house, like cleaning and preparing the food and everything like that. But the story wasn't so focused on that. The story was focused on her romance with this woman. And then also there was drugs and, alcohol abuse and moving out and having independence. It was really, really interesting. It was a different take on, I guess, the servitude that happened, but like also like framing it in a very human way with this woman who was very smart and also queer. Yeah, I thought that was just really interesting. And when I read that, I hope that for this next generation of films that are centered around the time frame in which, our people were enslaved, that we allow some more of the humanity to be told through the storylines.
Yeah, it's like Underground.
Yeah, the one on Amazon Prime.
No, that's the Underground Railroad.
Oh,
There was a show called Underground with Journey Smollett.
I remember that one.
That one was like, you give it Shonda Rhimes.
Okay.
Tony, what about you?
Well, actually for me, because it's the book that I most recently read, cover to cover, and I'm on a journey of reading more, I actually want to talk about Michael's book, I Don't Want to Die Poor.
Where's the camera?
Where's the camera?
It's right here.
Where's my camera? So, but no, like it actually impacted me a lot because I related to him on so many levels. And I think you all probably related to him as well. But from discovering like who you are sexually, your sexuality, to coming out, to the struggles of dealing with student loan debt. I don't think Damon had that struggle, but Jordan and I
don't know why you were telling these people my business.
we have that struggle in
share
common.
in that moment.
But no, it just reminded me, like, although we have individual experiences, I was just reminded of how many things we actually have in common and the similarities that we share, and that we're not alone in this world. We all have similar struggles. So it just made me feel a little less alone in the world, which is what we try to do with this podcast, but also made me think of how important it is to keep telling our stories and to keep paying it forward to the Black queer youth that come up behind us, because they really need that fairy gay mother or father to take them under their wings. And the work is ongoing. So that's part of my pledge. But I do want to say one thing, because
Here we go.
as it relates,
Get those glasses, baby.
as
Get those
it
glasses.
relates, hold on 1 second.
I'm sick of you.
You're gonna be sick of me all season long, all season. As it relates to Michael's relationship with his father, we all have varied relationships with our fathers, and for him, there's a part of the book in which he says about his dad. He says, "I understand that many men start as boys who idolize their fathers and want to be like them." Then he goes on to say that he never wanted to be or do anything that suggested that he was a reflection of his father, because, for various reasons. And I think that a lot of us as Black men and Black queer men specifically have that, we walk that tightrope, as it pertains to the relationships we have with our dad, whether we idolize them or whether we villainize them because they deserve to be villainized. So
right.
I just really related to him on so many levels, and it had a real impact on me. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So I have always really liked reading biographies and actual human being stories. And for the longest, I was like, anytime you asked me about a book, it was Darnell Moore, No Ashes in the Fire. That was my book.
Yes.
I recently got a new book.
You got a new book?
Got a new book.
You got a new book.
So Hari, who we met at Trappy Hour, right? This is how but this is what I mean about meeting people and talking about things that anywhere. But I was just like, oh, you're interesting. I'm gonna order your book and read it. His book's called what's the name of the book?
It's called Black Boy Out of Time.
Black Boy Out of Time. And loved this book. It reminded me partly of when we did the Gaze's Oldest Time episode.
Yeah.
And I think Steven's message to his 10-year-old self was like, you'll spend your entire life trying to get back to this feeling of being this free. And like that's partially the premise of his book, retelling his story, his experience back to his 10-year-old self and talking about all the ways in which the world makes life hard for little Black kids. And I found his book to be so moving. And one of the things he wrote in it, he was just like, I no longer need to see myself in their tales. I know that I can exist in the world, I can exist outside the world that they describe. And
Color outside the lines.
yeah, and for me, thinking about like those feelings of being a kid and you always want to feel seen, and we talk about how we're not represented, and it's kind of stepping further than that and saying, I don't need to be represented by you. If I can see myself truly as I was as a 10-year-old, then I know that I exist. I know that my life has value.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I've said in another episode this season is that as I'm getting older, I'm trying to hold on to that feeling of seeing the world as it should be and not seeing the world as it is, and not getting too jaded by things that go wrong.
Yeah.
So that was you find book recommendations at Trappy Hour. So
That was the moral of the story.
that was the moral of the story. Go to Trappy Hour.
It gave me
read a
very
book.
much. Good ideas can come from anywhere.
Good ideas can come from anywhere. So next, if we could write a story, what would it be? Tony, we're gonna start with you because we know that.
I'm a story writer.
No,
You're the storyteller.
every time you're the storyteller, and every time we do an interview anywhere, Toni Morrison says,
Well, yeah.
if
That's
there's
one
a
of
story
my favorite
that you
quotes.
want to tell and it hasn't been written, write it yourself.
Yeah.
So what are you
yeah.
writing, Tony?
So I think, in keeping in line with our trailer for the season, I would write the story about what life would be like if we all stopped pretending. And what if we lived in a world where everyone could show up exactly as who they are and free of judgment, and a world where people minded the business that paid them. I would love that. That's my favorite part.
Always get ready.
In a world where love is love, like I just would imagine like Wakanda, but like make it gay.
I mean, it's definitely fantasy.
It's
you're
giving
like-
Wakanda, but make it gay.
You're like
So,
a hippie.
I'm like a hippie.
You're a hippie.
But yeah, that's the story that I would like to write and tell and see, and what would life be like in that kind of world.
Jordan.
So,
Child, she's fired up. she has a storyboard.
She just had her coffee.
right. So, I would want to see a queer hero.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I read Children of Blood and Bone,
Mm-hmm. Love.
and I don't read and I don't get into fantasy, magic. Oh, I did not read the Harry Potters when it came out.
I didn't read them, but did you like the movies?
I didn't watch the movies.
Oh,
Yeah.
Will watching the whole Harry Potter series
Again?
right now.
Sad.
No, he's never seen them either. So I was like, let's
when did
do
y'all
this.
start?
We're 2 movies in.
Okay,
so
girl, you're already too
behind.
far to me.
We're 6 hours ahead of you. So they're long movies. I'm sorry.
But yeah, like I just love how that book sort of like takes like, you know, the African experience, the Black experience, and they really turn things into symbols of power. Like, for example, like when a certain part of the community, when they don't have magic, you know, their hair texture is not of a traditional African hair texture. But when magic returns to their bodies, their hair gets kinkier and curlier. And I would just love to see sort of something like that happen, where queer characters can sort of be powerful in their characteristics and, you know, the aspects of their lives, and something that can be told to like kids and families. You know, like I think that we're doing a great job of creating these stories for young adults and adults, but I would love to see more representation for that families can consume together and start having those conversations. So,
You know what was interesting when I read that book? I remember reading it the whole time, and I was like, "This is so nice. I get to escape what's going on in the world, the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, and everything." And then I got,
nice.
and then
It gave me
it
very
was
much.
but then I got to the epilogue, whatever the end notes, and she was just like, "I wrote this book as a response to all the things going on in the world." And I was just like, "Well,
yes.
I remember getting to that, and I was like, okay, well, I missed that part.
Yeah,
But
all the themes in there. I was like,
Right.
oh, girl, this is serious business. But,
I was thinking about She's Gotta Have It,
Mm-hmm.
and I would love a queer story like, go with me, like that represented these themes of sexuality, non-traditional relationships, people just living and doing what the fuck they want to do. But I want it to end in a positive light. And I say that because whenever, and even in She's Gotta Have It, where there's a story where a person's not monogamous or a person is not the traditional friend, it always ends with somehow their life going to shit. And the story being, if you do not live in a traditional way, then this is never going to work for you. And I would love to see stories of people that see the world more similarly to where I'm just like, I don't want to be in a traditional relationship. I don't have traditional friendships. I don't want to do traditional things. And you know what? I can still be happy and I can still have a great life.
Yeah, I can see the mom being like, fuck that.
Hello? That would be the name of the movie. Fuck that.
fuck the goddamn shit.
All right. So let's get to bringing in somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, I would love to talk to somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about. So today we're bringing in a fellow bison. Really excited about that. And someone who we know can really bring something to this conversation and help us out a bit. And some of you may be familiar with his work because he is the New York Times bestselling author of I Can't Date Jesus, Love, Sex, Family, Race, and Other Reasons I've Put My Faith in Beyonce, as we all do.
It is.
And most recently, I Don't Want to Die Poor, which we discussed earlier, because who wants to do that? So today we welcome.
I love that.
Today we welcome Michael Arceneaux to our surface level family.
Thank you for having me, and I don't want anyone to date Jesus or die poor, just for the record. I don't want that for nobody.
We'll date Beyonce, though. We'll take her.
Yay.
So before we jump into the interview, Michael, what we typically do is ask a series of this or that questions, just so that the listeners and the viewers can get a better sense of you and your personality. So I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, and then you just let me know what you rather out of the two. Beach vacation or city vacation?
Beach vacation, because I never take one.
Yeah, so you don't
So I
want
want
to
to
go to the
try
city.
that. Yeah.
Would you rather be the richest person in the world or the smartest person in the world?
The richest, because you don't have to be smart for that, and dumb people are having a great time right now.
Great answer. Dinner date with Megan Thee Stallion or Travis Scott? Both Houston natives.
Oh, Megan.
Okay, that was quick.
And yeah, my knee still works, so we have to bond already.
Ooh, you got Megan knees?
Allegedly, I'm holding on Houston, so I actually am holding on pretty nicely. So yes.
All right now.
Would you rather always be the first to arrive or always the last to leave?
I'm usually the first to arrive, and I remember now that I live in LA again that you're punished for that. I don't ever want to be the last to leave, though.
Yeah, because when you're the first
Yes,
to arrive,
I'd
you
be
start
the
doing
first.
chores. You got to start laying
Yeah,
out the
but I
cups
mean,
and things like
Can
that.
you take the platter out there? No.
Can you go run and get some ice? Absolutely not.
Right,
Now
now
I'm
I'm
home.
But I
party
like to know
together.
when to go home too, so I'd rather be early than late.
That's very true.
Know when to
Last.
say when.
LA or New York?
I live in LA now, but that's for me, LA.
Really?
Yeah, I left Harlem. God bless.
Would you rather have everyone know your thoughts at every moment or everyone be able to access your internet history?
Oh my God.
What do you think of this shit?
That's
I don't
he got
know.
that off the internet because
I was gonna say I think I do a combination of both already, but I guess maybe the first, since I already write memoirs. Yeah, it's some things should be mine. You don't need to know what I'm buying or looking at randomly because I'm bored.
Got you. Which Beyonce album, Four or Lemonade?
Oh, 4.
Oh, that was
Ooh,
quick.
I love that.
Live for Four. I mean, I was gonna put like self-titled or Lemonade, but I thought that Four was like a nice little curveball.
4 is a curveball.
It
Ball.
is.
I would
Boy.
take self-titled. Yeah.
Okay. And then the final question: What are you curious about?
Um, will anyone, well, okay, actually, hold on, I'm gonna put this. I'm curious about figuring out what my life can look like post plague. Yeah, if that ever actually ends, yes.
True.
Just in the fact that I don't think a lot of people have taken the stock that we are all very much fortunate to be here. And so, not to be all heavy, but when I hear people say, like, I've been blessed during a plague when so many people have died, I'm kind of like, we need to be a little bit more imaginative about that. So, I would love to be that. I'm very curious about how I can be better than I was before this every day.
Hmm.
Yeah, I hope that made sense.
No, that makes sense.
Ish.
That makes sense.
Okay,
Ish.
I'll take it.
So, Michael, I can't date Jesus and I don't want to die poor. Funny.
Thank you.
Concept.
Thank you. Thank
Concepts.
you. We appreciate it.
Can you kind of discuss with us the role that humor plays in your writing? I feel like a lot of it is your own personal isms, and maybe it's not intentionally funny, but it's just because this is how you are. It's very funny, and you got to kind of get your humor. So, can you dive in a little bit onto the role that humor plays in your writing?
It's a combination of I kind of can't help that people think I'm funny sometimes, and then I happen to think I'm funny. I think everyone in my family is actually really funny. My dad, my mom, my brother, my sister, like we're all pretty hilarious. But I also think just generally speaking, obviously like humor helps people deal with pain. I'm just personally a big fan of humor writing. I do think it's important not to use humor to kind of be evasive about certain things. So that's something to be important about in the writing. But yeah, also, I guess in terms of telling my story, I think while my life has a lot of trauma involved, it doesn't necessarily have to be presented or consumed that way. And for me, it was very important for my work to reflect who I am, which is someone that maybe has grown up in a lot of darkness, but can at least laugh about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because I do often hear a lot of, I'm a big avid fan of Whoopi Goldberg and I watch The View often, and there's Whoopi on there and there's Joy Behar, and they often talk about how humor can alleviate a lot of the pain that people are going through, and people use it as a vice to kind of get through that. Tiffany Haddish is another example of that. But speaking of tone and voice, I want to know, why was it important for you to specifically lean into the colloquialisms of Black queer men in your writing?
That's interesting you say that, because I mean I know I use certain yeah I do, but I kind of just I don't know, I'm a country Black dude from Houston, and I'm gay, and I very much own that, and that informs my identity. But I think just generally speaking, I write the way I talk, and I do think a lot of people, particularly Black authors or anyone marginalized or even double marginalized, are encouraged, if not stressed, to not sound that way. Because of whatever, well, I know what reasons why, but it's, I just thought it was very important for me to sound like me. I could have written a different type of book. I could have written different types of books. But for me, I wanted to write a book that I felt like I wish I had. And if I can just speak very bluntly, like a country nigga from Texas, like that's what I wanted. I wanted people to sound like me. It's important for my work for Black working class people, not only queer people, but just, which is most people in this country, working class people, to know that you don't have to who you are or change your tone in order to be commercially viable. The big thing about I Can't Date Jesus, which I mentioned, I don't want to die poor, which is why I was shortchanged, and I didn't feel like I got as much support financially as other people would have gotten, in spite of proving myself equally, is that there is the perception that being Black and gay means you are limited, especially if you are urban. So while I happen to think I'm, No Child Left Behind put a chokehold on me because I'm a Texan. It started early with George Bush as governor, but I happen to think, my work is no less of depth just because I so happen to speak a certain way. So I just thought it was very important for me to write the way I wanted to write and to make a certain point, because I think that also makes it easier for other authors to speak the way they want to.
Yeah, a pioneer, and that's important. Stick to your guns.
I'll take the
stick to your guns.
Yeah, and I
It's an
think
expensive choice, so but I thought it was really important because I can say how I was underpaid or treated, however I feel about my first situation. I just know for a fact that authors who are straight, actually my book came up and that actually helped them get more money. So I think that was really important.
hmm No, and I think that also leans into kind of the next question around honesty, which is one of the key components of your storytelling. You talk about your experiences with an eating disorder, with your father, abuse and alcoholism, a funny exchange with a hookup where the person had roaches, bed bugs, some type of insect.
That took me out.
And just like, what story are you most proud of sharing? And which do you, or if any, do you look back and say, maybe I wish I left that one out?
Honestly, I'm actually too aware. So, you write memoirs, but I didn't necessarily give every aspect of my life or every kind of important detail. Like, I'm very honest about everything I write, but I also know how to protect things that I don't think need to be shared or should be shared, because also when you're telling your story, you have to be cognizant of the fact that like that includes other people, so it might not be your place, or feelings are unresolved, or things might not be settled, or just generally it doesn't belong there. So there's a certain I know a lot of authors maybe necessarily don't have that consideration, but I always did, because I always knew it would be a very delicate subject for a lot of people, and there was the real potential to kind of alienate permanently people in my life.
But you do
with what I
name names
publish.
though. You name some names, so I don't know if you got permission
Well,
or if you just felt more comfortable with the names that you did name
well, generally speaking, with
or made
publishing,
them
there's
up.
certain names that might be changed so you can't sue me.
Got
But
it.
that aside, like, or the publisher really. But that aside, I think no. Even if you change or not, people know if you're talking about them, and people
Exactly.
in your life, if they know, they would know. So I just think there's certain things I know not to talk about. But to move on the original, I don't know if there's anything I'm specifically most proud of writing about, but I think I'm very proud about that I'm been able to tell two very specific stories with my books, exactly the way I wanted to do them, and they're reaching people, the people that I wanted them to reach, and then people who, I will say this, like just to pay about the last question about this idea about Black queer men and our limited commercial viability. I have a lot more faith in the audience than a lot of people do. So I'm mostly proud of the fact that like I got to write the books I wanted to write, and people fuck with them. So and people keep finding them. So that's kind of just the best thing. But yeah, I mean the bedbug things. I mean whatever. Honestly, stuff like that doesn't really bother me. I kind of made a point when I Don't Want to Die Poor and kind of the initial Homo Run Forward During the Plague, which I don't recommend, was that the sexual stuff or all that, that's not really that embarrassing because people actually attach more shame to like being broke or not growing up with money than anything. So that was actually the hardest thing to share, to even put that out there. But it was for a greater purpose.
So I just want to say before we get into the next question that I loved and I Don't Want to Be Poor, the chapter you had about the reality TV show. That
I appreciate
that chapter
That's
took me out.
I was gagging.
And also,
hopefully that you'll see something from that very soon in a different medium. Just lift that in prayer about that. But yes, thank you.
We're gonna pray on it.
we are gonna pray on that. And honestly,
I'm glad you said that.
Well, I'm dating Jesus, so
same.
I'm dating Jesus.
No,
So
we're working twofold, so no worries. I appreciate you saying that.
No, and the thing is, the whole time while I was reading that chapter, because like I was sort of in a situation where I was considering whether or not I wanted to participate in a reality TV show. And there were like similar thoughts going through my head where I was just like, do I want producers to be able to have like, autonomy over how my person is being portrayed and like creating storylines for me?
because your person becomes their person.
Exactly. And then like what business am I going to be out there? Because, I'm not trying to give like, Sheree Whitfield and I'm charging $5 for a selfie. I want to actually have like a business or something.
You wanted your joggers ready already?
I mean, if I was going to do joggers, they was going to be ready.
Before
spring summer. But no, but like I just wanted to say that like I love that chapter, and that really spoke to me.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So while we're talking about I don't want to die poor, there's sort of like this dual discussion, and I think part of it is talking about, encouraging the reader to sort of follow their dreams and and strive for their personal goals. But also I think there's a discussion around the realism of the financial burden that sometimes comes along with going after your dreams. And talking to you right now, Michael, you've accomplished a lot, and in exchange you've worked a lot. And we're just interested to know, like, do you feel like the ends and where you are right now justify all the struggle that you've had to go through?
I hear you. Thank you. I hear you. I will say when and it's not to dismiss the question, but it's to say I absolutely understand why people ask that, but I think what I try to point out in the book is that while, and also sometimes with the cop, it's like, yes, I was pursuing my dreams, but I think ultimately, like, what I came to realize is just because based on age, based on circumstance, things be outside of my control. No matter what would have happened, I would have found myself in a really difficult situation because social mobility in this country is much harder to attain. It is very difficult, specifically for Black people. And I think a lot of people just generally are socialized now to think debt is a part of like the journey, which in a lot of ways that it is. But at the same time, I could have been doing a lot of other jobs that were safer, as I point out in the book, like abandoning my dream, and I've actually would have made less money. So I think it's kind of at the certain point, once you get this degree, once you have this debt to you, no matter what happens, for me, I just essentially have no choice but to be successful. I have to keep working. Fortunately, I'm in a much better space where a lot of that debt is, well, the majority of that debt is removed, particularly like the private loan debt. I'm fortunate in that, but I just think ultimately I couldn't go back and make another choice, because if I had made any other choice, I probably wouldn't be talking to you all or doing any other thing that I did. You kind of have to just live with the choices that you make. I just think it's really unfortunate that even if you aren't necessarily my extreme example, as I've heard from a lot more people since the book has come out, they're living the same situation kind of essentially, and they went to like the school up the street. It's just more so like no matter where you go, it's set up against you. So hopefully people are kind of interrogating that more so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I did what I had to do because I had no other choice. But I think the bigger issue is like people like me or anyone shouldn't be put in that circumstance. And even the situation at Howard now, the school costs even more than it did before. And I also don't think for most of the people that are going to graduate, particularly in my field, they're not really jobs there anymore. And no one talks about these things. So that's kind of part of it. But yeah, I hear what you mean, but it's like I had no choice because I kind of, how else would I really get out of my situation?
Yeah.
I think too, like there was a line you wrote that said that people can get in your ears, swat away your dreams under the pretense of realism. And I think all three of us are first generation college students. Realism would have told us we would do nothing. Like I was recently interviewing for a new job. I work in the fashion industry, and it's filled with a lot of rich kids that can make $30,000 a year for however long, and it not matter because their parents pay for their Upper East Side apartment that's rent controlled, so on and so forth. And I think
because it's just not designed for you to be there.
It's not. It is not for us to be there. And I remember I was interviewing, and I told the person I was interviewing with, I was just like, listen. She was like, why are certain things important for you? What do you bring to your work? And I'm just like, listen, I'm a Black queer person from the Midwest. I'm everything that is not supposed to be successful in this industry. I've worked my ass off to get here. And I think that I'm bringing that point of view into the work that I'm doing, and it's valuable.
Right.
Luckily, they agreed and they hired me. But I think that's part of the things that are bigger than just I made a bunch of money or I didn't.
Yeah.
I think when people like us get into those spaces, hopefully, and like the goal is always to bring somebody else along. The goal is to change mindsets. The goal is to make it a bit easier and hopefully give some advice as to what people should or shouldn't be doing as they're navigating those earlier parts of their career, which may not be as lucrative. And hopefully, and I think you did a lot of that in this book, giving people examples of like, hey, find some shit that makes you happy and don't just get swallowed up thinking about your debt, but go on a vacation every now and then or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Well,
So I think
I want to be on that journey of removing that debt. So Michael, speak that on my life. Speak it on me. Speak it on
Speak
me.
that on you. Yeah, I was hoping people understood that you can make a lot of money and still be a lot of debt, because when you start behind, you start behind. It's just not designed for you to be there. Like, honestly, even when you say, like, being from the Midwest, like, let's say you had stayed home and did, quote unquote, what was the right thing. In most of those regions, most of those jobs are now gone. The same with a lot of stuff is in Houston. You know, like, it's sort of like, what else would you be doing? I mean, I could have been a teacher, but y'all would have paid me, like, even less. And then I'd just be mad at these kids for no reason because y'all stressing me out.
and then you starting the cycle all over again.
Right.
But to sort of build on that conversation, so Damon talked about like how the fashion industry is sort of primed for people who have the means, right, to be able to enter into the industry, not make a ton of money, but be able to stay in the industry and grow. And Michael, you mentioned that, and I don't want to be poor as well, about the media industry, which Tony and I are a little bit more familiar with as well, because we work in media. What advice would you give to people who are aspiring to entering into the media industry, but also come from modest backgrounds as well, to be able to achieve and succeed in that industry?
Be very realistic about what you can afford to do and what you can't afford to do. I mean, here's the thing, like I kind of mentioned it, but like I didn't kid myself about media. Like, I knew that wasn't made for people like me. I knew it didn't pay a lot. I knew it was going to be struggle. I knew these things, but what I did know is like, oh, the Great Recession happened. Oh, journalism, I understand it, imploded because none of these goofy people, God bless them all, didn't prepare for broadband, even though everyone knew the internet was coming. And so I'm competing now with people who used to make $250,000 for the same $50,000 job, and they probably gonna get it because they know somebody. So I think and that's not to discourage people to say that things can't happen, but I do think more people of any profession, but especially media, you should be mindful of how much you can make, what jobs really look like. Because the reality is you probably will end up doing a lot of contract work, which is kind of spanning most industries, but like media has perfected that. So it's like talking to people in the field. How do you make money? How do you have insurance? How do you do this? It's also kind of being able to realize, hey, I can do multiple things while still pursuing some larger goal. It's really allowing yourself just to be humbled in the pursuit of something. And also kind of giving you space to be able to change your mind about certain things. But yeah, I want people to know how much stuff pays. to know your field. Like, because again,
Absolutely.
like even now, because I think for a few years, I tried to tell people even just a few years younger than me, when BuzzFeed and all those sites start popping, I was like, that's just a lot of venture capital that they pumping into this industry, and give it 4 years and they're gonna be gone. And that's what happened, because God, like, they have more money than I do, I get it, but they don't know how to run media. And so I would say this, I got this at Howard, and I thought it was like I didn't believe it. He said, my problem with you is you're probably gonna be smarter than the people hiring you. And I was like, I don't believe that. I got what he meant. I'm just gonna say to a lot of them also, you'll be hiring a lot of people who might not be used to people that look like you and think they know more than you. Good luck with that. Just be prepared for all those things. But yeah, please know how much money you're gonna make.
Yeah. Well, you know what I got out of that is ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. I think people are scared to ask questions and share information. We should be doing more of that. And also, I'm a woman of a certain age, and I'm allowed to change my mind. So, Michael, where can people find you? Where can people find out what's coming up with what you're working on? Let us know. Give us a little bit of the tea on your projects and where people can, discover more about Michael Arceneaux.
Even though I'm too old for the name now, but it's too late to switch. You can find me anywhere at Young, spelled the regular way, Sinick, Young Cynic. I would spell Arsenal for people, but y'all see it in the title. I Don't Want It Outpouring, I Can't Date Jesus. It's still available, particularly by the first one. We love royalty checks. We'll buy both. You got it. It's paperback, Toya. And working on the third book. Some adaptations of the first two, but I don't want to. TV development is a very slow and interesting process, but we're pushing along. It's actually reminding me a lot about I Can't Date Jesus, but we made it. So I'm doing that and just trying to keep, get the other leg out the hood, but we're doing better in LA. So I really appreciate y'all having me, but I am writing a lot.
Well, thank you. We really appreciated this conversation. I can't wait to figure out what this next book is going to be. Hopefully with some more
it's
more
a nice
humor.
end to the first two.
It's a trilogy.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a nice end to the first two.
We love a happy ending.
You know what?
All right,
it's a play. So
Happy-ish. But that's all the time we have this week. This season of Surface Level is produced in partnership with Moby, Mobilizing Our Brothers Initiative. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. And remember, stay curious.